Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to those attending and also to those watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. This is a meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. My name is Councillor Darren Davies and I'm the chair of this meeting. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are accessible on YouTube underneath the broadcast. Please note that members of this committee shall be using tablets, laptops to view their agenda today. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers out of the building and to the nearest exit and the designated meeting point. Mobile devices, for those of you in the room, please switch off any mobile devices before the meeting starts or put them on silent. Declaration of interest, councillors, if you have a declaration of interest to make in relation to today's agenda, please ensure that you state whether it's pecuniary or non-pecuniary and give the reasons for your interest. Members need not to declare any interest in an item on the agenda where they have already listed this on their register of interest. Furthermore, you do not need to declare an interest just because you are a ward councillor or because you are a governor. Residents' feedback forms, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you're minded to, you can complete one of our resident feedback forms. These are at the bottom of the broadcast. And for those in the room, there are residents' feedback forms on your chairs. And now attendees. So as I've already said, I'm Councillor Darren Davies, I'll be chairing, and we'll just go around the room and just do a brief introduction, please.
Good morning, my name is Chantal McLeod. I'm the legal officer for today's subcommittee hearing.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Kuldeep Lakmana and I'm a member of the Licensing Committee.
Good morning, I'm Councillor Janet Gardner.
Good morning, I'm Itha and I petitioned with my mum, Shabnam Asghar.
Yeah.
Good morning, I'm Jeremy Bart from BCLP. I represent the applicant this morning, and to my right is Hardeesh Purewell, to your left as you're looking, who is the licensing manager for Tesco, and to the further right, the further left as you're looking, is Wilson Diaz, who is a store manager for a local store for Tesco.
Good morning, Daniel Ferreira from the licensing team, case officer today.
Ryan Dowell, Democratic Services Officer.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to the first part, which is introduction by the Regulatory Service and Licensing Officer.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the Licensing Committee. Today, the application you have before you is for a new application under the Licensing Act 2003, Section 17. The applicant is Tesco Stores Limited, and the proposed location is 34 Station Road, West Drayton, UB7 7BZ, for one of their Tesco Express stores. The application is for the sale of alcohol from 0600 to midnight, Monday to Sunday. And in addition, they have also applied for late night refreshment, 2300 to midnight, Monday to Sunday. The application was received by the licensing team on the 13th of November 2025, and so the closing date for valid representations was the 11th of December 2025. The application was advertised in the local press on the 19th of November 2025. A visit was carried out to the premises to check the blue notices for advertising. 6 notices were displayed around the High Street and also Ferrers Avenue around the corner, so it meets the advertising requirements. On the 10th of December, an application was received by the lead petitioner, Shabnam Asghar. It should be noted that the original petition that was received by the licensing team contained 127 signatures. However, 106 of those were not included because they were not valid as part of our licensing policy in the Section 17 of the petitions. Essentially, Chairman, the requirements are for every single sheet of the petition to make reference to the licensing objectives and the specific premises it is in relation to. In addition to that, our petition requirements stipulate they should have the full address of signatures, including their postcode. And it's for that reason that we've included 21, which meets those requirements. I should say also that when we received the petition, that we made various phone calls to the list, and so those that confirmed their full address, they were included. That was, as I said, 21 valid signatures, 20 of them local, as in West Drayton, and a further one was from Hayes. Also should be noted that Ms Shabnam Asghar, the lead petitioner, is also the current licence holder and DPS at the premises West Drayton Convenience Store, 18A Station Road. And Chairman, they're the key points, I think, of the application. I'll leave it to you and the subcommittee to assess the documentation and the paperwork and call on those you see fit. But if you have any questions for me in relation to the application, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Daniel. Do we have any questions at this time? Yeah.
Daniel, was there any members' inquiries received from the ward councillors, and was there a timeline as to when they had to be submitted?
So, as I stated, Councillor, it closed on the 19th of November. None were received within that valid time. Yes, I'm aware of one that was received outside the date. That ward member was advised accordingly.
Thank you. Just for the record, can I just confirm it closed on the 19th or the 11th of December? 11th. Yeah?
Sorry, it's my handwriting, Chairman. 11th.
Yeah, just for the record, so it did close on the 11th, and you received no members' inquiries and no valid representation.
That's correct. In addition to that, I should also note there was no valid representations for the responsible authorities as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we will now move on to the next part. So this is the applicant, so this is your time.
I'm very grateful. Given that the people who've attended today and given the nature of some of the comments that have been made, I was going to propose to explain a little bit about the application, what a Tesco Express is, and then some of the measures that we have in place as to why we think we promote the licensing objectives. Probably explains the lack of responsible authority rep. So I will try and canter through that as quickly as I possibly can. There are probably a few policy things as well that I just want to allude to, albeit Daniel has already in the committee papers covered most of those, but there are a few things I just wanted to touch on. I think the first thing I'd probably touch on from the outset as well is obviously there is a petition that has been made, etc. It's got 21 signatures to it that have been accepted. Each of those signatures is not a separate representation in its own right, as is reflected in your policy statement, current policy at 19.16. So just in terms of giving those appropriate weight, etc. In terms of the application by Tesco, this is for a Tesco Express store. It's the smallest format that Tesco operate. It's aimed at those who work or live in the local area and are typically looking to do up to about a day and a half to 2 days worth of shopping. Not everyone will do 2 day shopping, but it's aimed at the next 3 to 4 meals or just top-up shopping effectively. It's our most successful format. We were probably one of the first companies to introduce convenience stores many, many decades ago. Without being complacent, we like to think that we understand the model. We have evolved, and I'll tell you about it in a moment, some of our policies and our systems to make sure that we have the minimal sort of impact and footprint on the local area. For that reason, it's no surprise to us that none of the statutory authorities, responsible authorities, object to this application. The one thing you might be slightly confused about is why have we applied for late night refreshment. I'll clear that up straight away. We have vending machines in our premises that serve hot drinks. If we allowed people to put money in them, it wouldn't count as late night refreshment. But because we want extra control in the new stores and the new machines we put in, we sell them a token which they then go and put in the vending machine. That then turns it into late night refreshment. So that is the only reason for late night refreshment. We haven't suddenly changed the business model. It's purely that anomaly within the legislation. If you wanted to restrict late night refreshment to the use of a vending machine for the sale of hot drinks, we would be more than happy with that, if you felt that was appropriate and necessary. Again, in terms of the scheme of the Act, I'm going to do it this way around. As you all full well know, it's in the committee papers anyway, the general presumption in the Act is to permit unless there is good evidence to restrict. And good evidence is set out in the guidance, government guidance, from paragraphs 9.41 onwards. It has to be actual evidence rather than a fear that something might happen or a suggestion that something might happen. A further thing in relation to that, you'll find it from paragraphs 9.11 onwards to about 9.15 in the government guidance. The statutory authorities are experts in their own fields, and therefore you are entitled to place great weight on their views. And there's a lot of case law in relation to this that suggests a lack of objections to something is equally valid evidence, then you are entitled, and we would encourage you to place appropriate weight on those lack of objections to this. Clearly, it's not based within the stress area. In terms of the Tesco operation, at pages 31 to 32, you will have the plans of the store, and it might be apt and appropriate to look at those in a moment. I've got a slightly larger blow-up of that plan, which was actually submitted. And I'm just going to orient you with the store in a moment for some of the things I'm about to say. So, this is Station Road here. Main entrance is here, coming in. The till area is over here. And you can see the alcohol displays are in good location of the tills. There's an area behind the tills that is flagged and marked as an alcohol display area. That's for spirits. We have a limited spirit display, but they're always behind the till. And again, there's a small display there as well. So you can see in the overall footprint of the store, alcohol is a very small proportion of the mods and the display areas, and I'll come on to that. So within an average Tesco Express, we typically have somewhere between 80 to 120 alcohol products. The majority of those are red and white wine. The products are designed to be linked to meals. So if you're buying your dinner, you might want a bottle of red wine to go with it, a bottle of white wine, etc., whatever it might be. The only promotions that we do in the store are linked to meal deals. So where you might get a starter, a main, a dessert, and a bottle of wine for a set price. We don't do localised promotions in relation to alcohol. And again, next time if you see a Tesco advert in a newspaper, there will normally be an asterisk next to it if it relates to alcohol saying this does not apply in a Tesco Express. It will apply in our larger formats of stores. In terms of the total percentage of sales, again, I can't tell you what they will be for the store, it's not open, but typically amongst the rest of the stores that we have, it's somewhere between about 5% and about 14% of total sales. There is one outlier that I'll mention, which is the store that we have next to Lord's Cricket Ground, which sells an unusual amount of champagne for reasons that I'm sure we can all guess. The overwhelming majority of sales of alcohol are linked to the sales of other goods, so 95% of the sales of alcohol plus are linked to people who are also buying other goods, which again is no surprise because that's part of the USP of the store. It's about people looking to buy goods from the store for the next 3 to 4 meals, etc. In terms of the hours that we have, hours are largely guided in line with your policy government guidance by our opening hours, and the intended opening hours of the store are from 6 in the morning till midnight. We will sometimes cut those hours back where the police in particular say there's a particular issue or there's a particular problem. The police in this case are perfectly content and happy with those hours. However, to give you a bit of reassurance, from 6 till 7, the total amount of sales in the other stores that operate in this format is less than 0.01%. This is not about us selling lots of alcohol at that time. It's more about if we have customers that are coming into the store who legitimately want to buy alcohol, because of all the safeguards that we have in place, we think it's appropriate to apply for those hours, and we would hope that you would grant them. Again, between 7 and 8 in the morning, it's a very, very small percentage of sales. So Wilson, who operates a store that's about half a kilometre away, another store in West Drayton, was saying that in terms of alcohol, probably the period where most people will buy alcohol is from about 3:30 to about 7 o'clock. So it's people who are going home, on the way to pick up shopping, etc. It's not to say we don't sell at other times, but again, we have those safeguards in place. We do have a number of other stores within the locality, and many of those operate at similar hours to this particular store. It's either from 8 in the morning till midnight, or there are a couple of stores that operate from 6 in the morning all the way through to midnight. There is no suggestion within any of the representations, and if there were, we would deny that those stores cause any problems. And so you have a store that is, as I say, roughly half a kilometre away, also in West Drayton, no suggestion whatsoever that it causes any problems. In terms of Tesco, we have about 2,500 stores that operate in this format. We have about 3,500 stores in total. We like to think that we're an excellent operator and that we promote best practice, and that we innovate in terms of that. I'll give you some examples of that. The process for identifying a store means that we go through a rigid process at store level, and if we thought that there were any circumstances locally from looking at the data which meant that we couldn't with our systems, deal with any local issues, we simply wouldn't take the site. So there's an awful lot of planning and thought that goes into this. It's not just simply, oh, there's a site that's available, we will take it. There's an awful lot of analysis that goes into that whole process. In terms of Tesco systems, first and foremost with alcohol, we have a Think 25 policy. We were the first company nationally, before the Licensing Act 2003 came into force, to adopt an age-restricted policy. At that time, it was Think 21. We'd sat down with the Home Office and the Association of Chief Police Officers, as was, and come up with that system. We were the first in the off-licence sector to move to Think 25. I think we were the first, including in the on-licence sector, and therefore we always like to think that we are at the forefront of doing what we think is right and having the right policies in place. The way that system works now is that it's linked to the tills. So if an age-restricted product is scanned through the till will lock, and it requires input from the checkout assistant. They effectively have two options, to press yes or to press no. If they press yes, then that means one of two things, potentially. Firstly, it means that they thought the person was over the age of 25 and there was no other reason to refuse the sale. Or secondly, they challenged for ID, a valid form of ID was produced, and there was no other reason to refuse the sale. If no is pressed, again, it could mean one of two things. It could mean that there was a challenge for ID that wasn't successful, the person wasn't able to produce a valid form of ID. Or secondly, it could simply mean that there was some other overriding reason to refuse the sale. They believed that the person was drunk, they might believe they were purchasing it on behalf of somebody else, any of those issues in line with training, etc. A further thing that we do on the till, which demonstrates the level of thought that goes into our systems, is there is a prompt that updates every day and says a person who was 18 today would have a date of birth of whatever that date of birth might be. It effectively takes the maths out of working out ages, etc. for the person on the till or the person who's supervising within that area. It's linked to point of sale material, so where the alcohol displays are around the tills, we've got the Think 25 message. It's linked to our training, it's linked to audits. We do many forms of audits within our stores, but the two that are relevant here is first we have something called Safe and Legal, which is where every quarter the area manager will sit down with the store manager and go through every aspect of the store and making sure that it's compliant with Tesco policies, any licences and the legislation. That includes a big part on premises licences where we have permission to sell alcohol within our stores, and so you have that check. On top of that, every quarter we use mystery shoppers. So we use an external company who sends 18 and 19-year-olds into the stores and effectively to make sure that the Think 25 policy is working. We can't send in people under the age of 18 because we don't have the statutory power to do so, but we select people, as I say, who are 18 and 19. Those results go not only to the area manager but also go to Hardish. Hardish regularly shares all that data with the police locally where they wish to see it. We don't hide any of that. In terms of training, hugely comprehensive. Interesting stat for Tesco, I think we still are the company that has more people in senior management and leadership roles that started on the shop floor than any other company. The reason I mention that is we are devoted to training people so that they can have a career with us rather than simply a job. Our training is hugely comprehensive. Every member of staff whose role involves sale of alcohol gets an induction before they start on the shop floor. There is a whole section that deals with alcohol. They get refresher training at least twice a year, and so again it's part of a rolling programme. The training that we have, and we can tell you more about it if you're interested, I think is still the only training in the off-licence sector to have won the British Institute of Innkeeping Good Practice Recognition Scheme Award, so again it's been validated. The form it takes by way of further information is it's based on DVD or online. It uses employees effectively as actors to role play and demonstrate in certain scenarios and make people aware of what the consequences are of inappropriate sales, etc. On top of that, all the members of the management team get conflict resolution training and other training, not that we think we will need it, but so that they have the right skills should an issue arise and they can then deal with that. We have a number of policies. There are only really two that I'm going to mention. The first is we have a very detailed responsible retailing of alcohol policy. I can sum that up in the following phrase. We train, encourage and empower all members of staff to refuse any sale of alcohol where they have any concern whatsoever. And again, I can give you some examples if you'd like to hear those. On top of that, we have a policy that is probably the most important policy, called You Say No, We Say No. So if the checkout assistant or the supervisor refuses the sale of alcohol, and the member of the public, then our customer, goes to the member of the management team and says, I'm aggrieved by this, I think I should have been sold alcohol, even if that member of the management team would have come to a different decision, they will support the refusal. There is no point training people and encouraging them to be autonomous in terms of refusing people if you are then going to overrule them. And again, I think that's indicative of what we're about in terms of this. We've also removed any financial incentive for sales of alcohol from any bonus schemes or any rewards or any auditing. You can lose points if you don't get it right, but you can't get points just based on how much alcohol you sell, etc. Again, we were one of the first companies to do that. In terms of Hardish's role goes beyond Tesco. She's also Director of CAP, Community Alcohol Partnerships, and has been for many years. And again, Tesco play an active part in that, making sure that within local communities around the country, we are aware of and helping to deal with any alcohol-related issues. Hardish is also involved in something called the Retail Alcohol Strategy Group, which is all the leading retailers in the off-licence sector, to make sure that we are keeping abreast of, aware of and sharing what we believe to be best practice. CCTV within our stores, we have typically within this format on the shop floor about 12 cameras. There are certain cameras that are in fixed locations, so on the entrance, the camera doesn't move, it always gets a headshot. On the alcohol displays and on the tills, some of the other cameras we can move around and we can pan and tilt, etc. In terms of staff, we will have a store manager supported by 3 of the members of the management team. The store is not due to open, should you grant a licence, at the end of April, beginning of May, but we anticipate we will probably have somewhere between about 14 and 20 other members of staff, depending on the part-time, full-time mix. At the busy times, you would normally have 4 people on the shop floor, plus a member of the management team. And again, we like to think that we resource our stores appropriately. In terms of alcohol, we've already talked about the displays. With beers, lagers and ciders, if they're not speciality products, then we don't stock any high ABVs, don't stock above 5.5. Again, we're one of the first companies to move that to that. We also, where they're not speciality products and it's in 440 mils or less, don't sell in less than 4 packs. Again, so people can't just come in and buy, I think the colloquial phrase is a tinny, etc. But again, it works well in terms of not being an attractive target for anything else. In terms of security, we risk assess all of our stores, and we do that on an 8-week rolling programme. So we will assess the need for security, and we will then effectively employ it in such numbers as we think fit. By way of example, in Wilson's current store, I think the current need is that we have certain security provision within the evenings, but it wasn't within the day. Historically, I think when the store first opened, we had slightly more, and then that's changed as a result of the risk assessment. The point being made, I don't think you need to condition that, the police don't think you need to condition that, but if we think there's a need to do something, we will then do it, and we will, in our eyes, do it very, very well. We have cleaners who clean not only within the store, but without the store on a daily basis, so the shop front, etc. Subject to planning, we will hopefully have a bin at the entrance of the store, etc. So again, that's something we deal with, we like to think, very, very well. Some of the other innovations that we've put in place within the stores since lockdown occurred, and which have worked well, we have at least 4 body cams within each store. So if there's a member of security that's been employed, they will have one. If not, it will be the manager and 3 other people on the shop floor. And again, that helps with interactions with customers. There will also be at least 4 headsets so that people can speak to each other within the store and monitor what's going on. There is a link to something called the Hub, and I'll come on to that in a minute, which is effectively a form of panic button if that's necessary and required. And again, we can control the front door at certain times of day, so we can lock it, so that as people come to the door, we can let people into the store effectively on a basis as we think fit. So again, those are things that have happened in the last 3 or 4 years, rolled out across the portfolio. We also introduced something called the Hub, which is a support to all our local stores. And effectively, this is manned 24/7, it's based in Birmingham, and what those people can do is they can port into the CCTV cameras, and they will provide real-time support to the members of staff. They can even port into the tannoy system and effectively advise them and help them. If there was a need to, they could also get involved with the local police. On top of that, we introduced something called local area guarding. So Tesco employ their own security guards effectively on a regional basis, and so we already do that within Hillingdon, and I know that in terms of Wilson, you're saying that the response time that is given is within 15 minutes, typically beats that, but again, it is a further step and a further level of assurance so that if issues arise, we can deal with it, and we can deal with it well, and we can then share any of that information, if we needed to, with the police. I think the final thing I just wanted to deal with was antisocial behaviour in terms of what Tesco do. Tesco's stance is quite simple. We don't tolerate it. If people behave badly, we ask them to stop. If they won't stop, we ask them to leave. If they won't leave, we call the police. We have something we call a rogues gallery. If someone is banned, we take a still from the CCTV and it goes in the rogues gallery. On top of that, something that the store does every week is that Wilson or any other store manager will sit down with their area manager and look at things that are working well, things that are working less well, and if we think things need to change, we will effectively seek to do that in the appropriate way, including getting the permissions that might be needed. Very, very quickly, just in terms of the reps, and I've got to say, I never ask questions. I do this professionally, so I would never ask you if I could ask questions, but just a few points in terms of that. Clearly, we have a slightly different point of view. We understand that those making the objection have a slightly different perspective and point of view, but I'd make the following points. Obviously, clearly, both in your policy and within the government policy, need is not an issue. That's a matter for either competition authorities or the planning department. I think in terms of what is being alleged in terms of street drinking and what's been painted as a huge problematic area, not to say there are not issues day to day, but they're not as are being portrayed, and you can find that from the fact that firstly, none of the statutory authorities object to this application. There is no cumulative impact policy area in place for that particular issue, and again we have lots of local stores where they deal well, and if there were particular problems that would have been asserted. Again, I think the point that I would make, which is in terms of this, we don't suggest that the store which is making the objections causes any particular local problems. They are about 100 yards further down the street, and clearly they can deal with and manage those issues well, otherwise they would have been reviewed. We don't think on the basis of all the systems and policies that we have in place that we would be any different to that. We know the local area very, very well. We invest quite heavily into that. To the extent that any issues arise, we will deal with them, and we believe that this application in this current format should be granted as it promotes licensing objectives. I've probably spoken far too long, but I just wanted to, given who was here, set out comprehensively what Tesco do and what we're about. Clearly, you have the three of us here if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that in-depth report. Do we have any questions at this time? Councillor Gardner.
If this is agreed, are you going to have a cash machine outside?
Apologies. Looking at the layout drawings, I can't see that there's a cash machine, so I don't think so, but obviously separate to licensing. And looking at the planning, etc., so planning is obviously different to licensing, but that would more deal with it. There is an existing planning use there that doesn't need to be changed, but if they are going to put in a cash machine, it would probably be part of the shopfront application. I don't deal with that, I haven't seen it at the moment, but I don't think so.
We are here as well to discuss the licensing objectives. Councillor Gardner, I'll give you a little bit of leeway on that one, but yeah, any further questions? Yep.
The papers mention that you operate on a good neighbour ethos. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Sure. So there are a number of different facets to that. The key point of good neighbour is that we try and have the minimal footprint that I mentioned at the outset, so that where we're there we don't negatively impact on the local area or local residents or local businesses. We also are open and we will speak to anyone and listen to people. Doesn't mean we will necessarily agree with them on things, but if we do, we will try and effect change. We also try and make a bit of a difference and benefit to the local area as well, so we have community boards. We will try and raise money. So by way of example, in the Hillingdon area, within our existing 8, I think, express stores, There's a Stronger Start project with involving local schools where we raise money. I think in the last year we raised just under £9,000. So a number of different facets to it. In a licensing context, it's more around we want to try and make sure that we don't have any negative impact of there being a store in the locality, in the area, and hence why I explained some of the policies and some of the processes that we have, which are designed to try and ensure that. Again, Hardish might have some comments as well.
Also, if there's any local residents groups, would be happy to join those, and if there's anything that the residents are concerned about, I don't know, people leaving noisily, we just wouldn't welcome them into our store if those people are kind of regular customers. We just wouldn't welcome them into our store. But that's about working closely with local groups so that we know if any issues are emerging, and if we're in a position, we can deal with those. Okay.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Chair.
There was probably one other thing I should have said as well when I was speaking to Wilson beforehand. Another aspect of it, he has regular meetings with the PCSOs, probably every 2 weeks. I think it's Wilson did give me the lady's name, and it's Sarah Chillingsworth, who he has sort of her mobile phone. They speak regularly. So again, that's yet another facet of just trying to make we understand the area and we don't have a negative impact. It's that simple, really.
Thank you.
Incident reports. It might have been there. I may have missed it. So how do you log incidents on site? So I don't know, you had some ASB in the store, someone you refused, trashed the shop, etc. How do you log that?
So everything tends to be digital in terms of rather than physical books, etc. So there will be an online log within the manager's office, and it will go onto that. Obviously, that will then get shared with Hardish, etc., etc., etc. The other thing we do, and you might think, why are you telling me this? Sounds really bad, but bear with me to the end. If you were to look at the police CRIS reports for Tesco, we tend to have more incidents logged on those than any other competitor, etc. Now, CRIS reports are not crimes, they're just incidents, and Tesco will be used as the indicator if we phone up. So if we see things that are going on outside our store, we will phone the police and tell them about it. So you get Tesco as the locator, even though it's nothing to do with us, but effectively we have a log that's kept on the computer system within the store where everything goes onto that. So at the end of the shift, whoever is the team leader, the member of the management, will effectively go into the system and log all those, and then they're obviously kept there for posterity forever.
Okay. And staffing for the new store. Are they going to be a new member of staff, or are you going to second someone to the area until the store's up and running? My reason behind this question is, as I'm worried about experience. You bring someone new in that's maybe never run a store and it's in quite a high impact area, so I'm just interested in that.
So, two elements to that. First is in terms of the management team, we will always seek to bring someone in who's experienced from the local area. So that appointment hasn't quite been made yet, but you would expect someone that's had at least 2 years experience running a store. Not always, but particularly in other challenging areas. In terms of the members of staff otherwise, you'll have the other minimum 3 team leaders, and then have between the 14 to 20 members of staff depending on part-time, full-time. Some of those will be drawn from other stores, etc., and some will be fresh appointments. We do try and encourage employment of local people, so they're aware of the local area and the local issues, and obviously they will be employed well in advance of the store opening, and so there could be a number of different things that happen in terms of the training. Firstly, we will send them, if they haven't got any experience at Tesco, to other stores potentially, to get some experience of that, and you might get other people coming in and sort of giving them quite intensive training, so people from Hardish's team, etc. But the idea that you would have a store manager who was fresh coming in is not really something that we do at all.
Fine. Thank you very much. Right, so no more questions at this time? Lovely. So we're going to move on to the petitioner.
Hi. Sorry, I was unaware that I'd be here today presenting, so I have sent emails with all my points that I would like to discuss. You mentioned that there was over 100 petitioners, but only 21 was active due to not having their address and phone number. However, I'd like to point out, as someone that works in cybersecurity, I don't ever give out my address or number, so I'd like you to take that point into consideration, that sometimes people don't, under GDPR as well, that they may not want to give their details. but they are valid residents, and there's residents here from West Drayton that have attended with us today who object to Tesco's coming to West Drayton. I have lived in West Drayton since 2006, so I really know the area well, and where Tesco would like to come, we drive in through the back way to get to our house, and there wouldn't be enough space for Tesco's to have space for customers to come, as there's only 6 available parking spaces. Currently, there's a lack of car park space for residents. For example, when we lived in 2006, there was a lot of space. We would park anywhere at the back. However, now Boots has made their car park private. The shops closer towards the end at the back have made their parking private. The barber has also taken their space. The Chinese restaurant has made their parking private. So even myself, I've had parking fines because although I live in West Drayton, I'm still receiving parking fines because there's no parking. I've had to actually get rid of my car so that we could be okay without parking fines because my mum has a car, so we just car share. And so there will be a problem for parking space. I'd also like to point out that there will be big lorries, and that causes a lot of problems. I'm an animal lover, so I wouldn't want anything to happen to my cats, and the parking space is very tight. I don't feel that there will be too much congestion for cars to come in and out. There's only a one-way road, so that would be a problem. Also, a lot of the residents in West Drayton feel the same way. There's residents that have come with me today that would also like to raise their concerns, that have lived in West Drayton way longer than myself, so above 20 years or so. So I'd appreciate if you could give them the opportunity to voice their concerns as well.
Unfortunately, that isn't something that we do in this committee.
Right.
So we only go off the petition and what councillors if they've made submission in time.
Okay.
Can I just clarify from a legal point of view, because they are, whilst I appreciate that they form part of your submission or your representation, because they've submitted a petition, they are not classified as a party to this subcommittee. So they would have been entitled, like you were, to submit their own representation, and then they would have been able to be given a chance to perhaps voice their concerns or voice their views. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. So residents that we know have voiced their concerns via email and letters before the deadline of the 11th of December. So I'm not sure why they weren't able to talk today, but that's fine. Another reason I'd like to add is that there's a lot of traffic in West Drayton. It's really evident that that West Drayton has gotten a lot busier. As a resident that's lived there since 2006, there's far more traffic now. And with the Tesco's coming, there will be a lot more traffic. The Tesco's that used to be open down the road, the Tesco Express near Cherry Lane, I take that route quite frequently, and I've noticed that when it was open, it would be very busy. There would be maybe 15 cars, and I personally believe that West Drayton, the new location, doesn't have the capacity to meet that much burden of traffic. There's already parking problems, and there's not that much space. The loading bays are always taken in West Drayton. And I also feel that sorry, my mind's gone. So too much traffic. There's also there's a Tesco. There's a massive Tesco that's a 9-minute walk. I calculated the time. I took a walk to Tesco's, and it's a massive big store which is 9 minutes away. So I don't see that there is a need for a Tesco Express to come quite frequently. We have multiple shops that are on Station Road, so there isn't a need. And the residents feel the same way. There isn't a lack of resources available, and if we'd like to go to Tesco's, we always go to the massive Tesco, which is only a 9-minute walk away, which has a very large car parking space. We fear for children and elderly who always walk if there's big lorries. it causes problems. Recently there was someone that did get run over by a massive truck and they had to have their leg amputated. This incident happened last year. So there is that concern of safety for elderly and children. And also I'd like to point out that my mum has a small business and she's been there since 2006. And if a Tesco doesn't open, it's not going to affect Tesco's. As you know, it's a multi-million industry and business, whereas a Tesco coming would impact small businesses, such as my mum, who opens the shop at 5 a.m. and closes at 12 a.m. And over the years, her sales have increasingly dropped due to the vast competition. And unfortunately, if a Tesco does come, it would impact. Yeah, it would impact the business.
Okay, I've just spoken to legal. If you do want to pass a note over, you're more than welcome to pass a note over, but you're not allowed to speak at this time. You're not allowed to speak.
This is just
as an assistant.
As an assistant, that I must stress, you're not in a position to make any formal representations because you haven't made a formal representation.
Yep.
Okay.
And it is very unprecedented. We wouldn't normally allow it. Okay. I wouldn't normally allow this because you've made your submission.
Yep.
You put your petition in.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunately it's not this committee's fault that you didn't know you were speaking. Okay, so carry on while the gentleman does what he needs to do.
Okay, sure. Yes. So also with Tesco Express, I noticed that there's a lot of crime. People do shoplift, and I fear that Tesco Express would increase those types of people to come to West Drayton to steal. Unfortunately, Tesco Express is always vulnerable to crime, so we wouldn't like those types of people to come because it will increase in crime in West Drayton. And yeah, there's more than 4 off licenses in West Drayton. There's roughly around, I'd say, 5 to 6 off licenses on West Drayton, and that's just near Station Road. If you were to go further down, there's a lot more shops. The whole road off Station Road towards Easley, towards Cowley, you're not short of off licenses. Also, my mum has said that she's happy to put an ATM machine in her shop to meet that need of the lacking of an ATM machine. So we would like to meet the demand for the public because we understand when Lloyds Bank closed, the ATM machine has gone. My mum has helped the residents by giving them cash back because when the ATM machine closed with Lloyds Bank, my mum would give loads of customers cash back to help them, and we are looking into an ATM machine. We just don't feel that a new license and a new Tesco's is valuable to the residents of West Drayton. There's far too many shops that all essentially sell the same items. We would like something different to come to West Drayton. We don't need another Tesco's. It's far too busy, and I'll just wait for the notes if there's anything else.
Did you have any notes you wanted to pass across? This is your time because I will be wrapping this up.
Is that okay if I can go through my notes that are on my phone from the email?
Yeah, you can get your phone out.
Okay.
I just need to be mindful that this committee has to review the licensing objectives. Okay, so the licensing objectives is what we are here to review today.
Right.
Okay, a number of the points that you've raised are not licensing objectives. They are more planning terms, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that you need to remember that we're here to review the licensing objectives for the alcohol license.
Okay.
Okay.
So according to the licensing objectives, there's far too many shops that have licenses. My mum's shop, she offers alcohol from, I believe it's 8 a.m. 8 a.m. my mum? Yeah. 8 a.m. to 12 a.m. And there's other shop owners that do the same. So we don't need an extra licensing to come to West Drayton. Again, that would cause traffic, with more people coming to go to Tesco's to buy any alcohol. It would cause noise pollution late at night, because my mum closes the alcohol shutters so that only local residents come, and there's not any young children or youngsters causing commotion. But I don't think that would be the case with Tesco's. So it would cause noise pollution, and there's residents. We actually live on top of the shop, so as someone that's lived there since 2006, it's become far too noisier over the years, and we often can't get sleep if there's people outside making a commotion. And and also I'd like to point out that we weren't made aware that there was a Tesco's opening in West Drayton. We never received no letters or any notifications. We only found out because we live on the road. As we would walk past number 34 Station Road, there was a sign on the door that said that Tesco's planning permission, and that's how we caught notification of this matter. Otherwise we weren't told this either.
Okay, thank you very much. It's very hard to do what you've done, so I respect you coming to sit here and do this, okay? Right, we're going to go to the discussion-led part now, so people, the subcommittee members can ask questions, okay? But before I do that, I just want to go through some bits. I want to ask a few questions. So just regarding the petition, Dan, can I just confirm that we need to have names and addresses to confirm they live within the borough?
Yeah, that's
the main reason. So it's part of the reason we have to do that, okay? And I can just confirm that you said at the beginning there were 6 notices and it was posted within the London Gazette?
In a local paper.
I believe it was a London Gazette, but there was definitely 6 notices up, so statutory obligation was filled, okay, with that. I'm now going to go on to my colleague Steve. Do you have any questions at this time? Or this is your time to ask questions to anyone, so you can. Yeah.
The petitioner said that they've already got a lot of noise in the area. Has that been reported to the police, and how far is your location from the proposed Tesco new licence?
We are only 3 shops away from the proposed licence, and yes, there has been noise complaints made to the council from residents and our neighbours as well. For example, like fan ACs make a lot of noise, so that was a problem that was reported in the previous years from other shops that have fans that make noises, and at night people can't sleep. So that's something that's been reported, and I feel that if a Tesco was to open, they would also have the same type of fans as well for their fridges.
Okay.
Thank you.
Duncan, it doesn't say anything in the report that any noise complaints have been made. Do we have anything?
Chairman, all I can say is that the Environmental Protection Team, who are the responsible authority, they haven't made a representation.
Right, okay. So we've had no complaints from ward councillors, environmental health team, you've been made aware of in that location?
That's right. This is a new application, Chairman, as well.
Yeah, I understand that.
In relation to Tesco's Express.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner.
Have you read you've read the documents pack, presumably? So you don't know that the methods that Tesco's will be putting in place for the to adhere to the licensing objectives. Because I'm just intrigued that a lot of the things that you said on here is based on presumption, but these are the 4 licensing objectives. But I'm trying to work out where your objections to what they're doing.
My objection is mainly on the fact that we don't need another licence, another branch that sells alcohol in West Drayton. It's not a need for the residents. We don't need the extra traffic pollution, the extra noise, and the extra crime that can come with that.
Okay, so let me just step in there. This committee isn't here to assess the need.
No.
Okay, that isn't something that we're here to assess. We are not here to assess. We have to adhere to the licensing objectives. So a need for something isn't what we look at, because there is already 6, as you've said, 6 licensed premises there, plus 2 pubs at the end of that road. If we were to look at the need, is there a need to have 6? Potentially not. Potentially there's a need to have 1. So that's why we have to follow the licensing objectives. Okay. Councillor Gardner, do you have anything further?
The bit that intrigues me is that it states the Station Road area has a very, I presume it meant high rate of street drinkers. It's only out and make matters worse. I can't understand why the police aren't here if there's a high rate of that, and also with the increasing antisocial behaviour, this will only add. I mean, that's an assumption, saying this will only add. But I'm just trying to work out why the police haven't presented anything. Because if there is a high rate of street drinkers, presumably the police would know. They would have already put their complaints in. I don't know. As I say, we are, as the chair said, we are restricted by what the licensing objectives are. And they said about the prevention of crime and disorder, they're saying what they'll have in place. You know.
I'd also like to know that the lorries that the alcohol would come on, where would these lorries be? Because there's actually no space for
that doesn't concern this committee.
That's a planning concern.
Planning.
So that's not a licensing objective. So anything, I'm going to break protocol and just go through it very quickly. Anything where there would be a vehicle parking on the pavement, unless it was preventing causing harm to the public, etc., like that, a public nuisance, that's where it becomes part of the licence. So where a delivery unloads is a planning permission and planning consent. So that wouldn't form part of this. If you were to say to me that a lorry was full mounting the pavement every day, unloading and blocking people from coming past because of the licensable activities, then that potentially has an opportunity to be reviewed here. But the main part is what you've raised so far as planning concerns. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, have you got any further questions? Okay, we're now going to go to closing remarks. Okay, so what that means, we're going to go around the room, everyone will get a brief closing remark of what we've heard today, and then the applicant will get the final closing remark, and then we will go away for deliberation and decide what if we're going to move forward. Okay, so Daniel.
Just a quick summary, Chair. Points have been raised about the representations. I can just confirm that the petition was the only representation, if you like, which was received within the closing date. No representations from our responsive authorities. There was also a point mentioned in relation to like cybersecurity and details. And yes, when we received this application, we called that list, and so some gave their postcodes because they was willing to, and they got added to that 21. But also there were some that just sort of said, well, I don't want to give my full details, and they were excluded as well. So we acted like both ways. We left it down to the individual signature person for that thing. If they wanted to be part of it, they were happy to have it. We didn't want anyone to be listed who didn't want to put their name to it.
Thank you. Closing remarks. You have anything? This is your final chance to get your point across.
Sure. So I object, and over 100 residents in West Drayton and more object to Tesco's coming to West Drayton, because as part of the licensing, we don't need the extra pollution and extra noise, antisocial behaviour, and there isn't a lack of alcohol in West Drayton.
Okay, thank you. And the applicant.
I'm very grateful, thank you. In terms of summing up, we like to think we're an excellent operator. We've given you many examples of where we have implemented and then propagate best practice. We will continue to do so. We think this application is located in an area that will not cause us to breach any licensing objectives. You've heard about everything that we do. Again, there are no statutory authority objections, and again, the reality is there is one representation that is before you today, coupled with a petition. Whilst we may have sympathy for some of the comments which have been made, I would just echo the fact that the main objection is based on need and competition. and that is not a matter for this committee. However much sympathy we may have for what is being said, this is about the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, and on that basis I would hope that you would grant the application in full. And add the further point that the scheme of the Act as it is such because there is the power of review. So at this stage the store isn't open. If any of those quotes fears, because that's all they can be at this moment in time, were ever to be realised, it could always be brought back to this committee, and that's how the Act is supposed to work, and therefore we would ask you to grant the application as sought. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you to those that came as well. Thank you.
Right, so thank you everyone for attending. What will happen now is a subcommittee will go away and deliberate, and then the decision, once made, will be posted online, or you can remain outside, but it could be some time. Okay, and then I believe it's 14 days as well, is it?
I think it is.
Is it full?
Is it 5 working days for
5 working days, so you will also be notified 5 working days of the decision.
in writing?
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to do that, you can go away, come back. Are you okay to give a call? Or yeah, we can give a call. That's fine. So thank you very much.